Hello, this is Ruslan Belov with you. Let's get straight to the front, where fighting continues, and we continue to monitor the situation there. Switching to the map. So friends, today we'll start with the Kursk region, since active combat takes place here from time to time. Yesterday, there were reports of an attempted breakthrough by a Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group, DRG, into the Kursk region. In recent days, the armed forces of Ukraine have attempted to break into the region several times, particularly near the village of Tyotkino. They used 2 Bradley vehicles and 3 motorcycles for the attack. One Bradley was destroyed by a direct hit as soon as it crossed the demarcation line. The second Bradley managed to turn around and retreat, while all the motorcycles and the Ukrainian soldiers riding them were eliminated. Another failure. And I'll say it again, these attacks have no prospects. Why they keep trying is unclear. The front line here doesn't change. More than that, I'll tell you that after the recent clearing of the outskirts of Tyotkino, where Ukrainian forces entered on May 6th, 7th and 8th, for example, on Chapaeva Street, those areas were cleared, and so was the defensive line in front of the village. And I'll tell you, I have never seen so many Ukrainian corpses before. And all these bodies, the Kyiv authorities won't count them as dead. They'll list them as missing in action, just to avoid ruining the statistics and to avoid paying death compensation. That's why, remember, Zelensky claimed there were only 30,000 killed, because there are supposedly 500,000 missing in action. As for the Kursk region, there's really nothing more to add. The only activity is near Tyotkino, and even there, it's limited to attacks like these. 2 Bradleys and a few motorcycles trying to cross the line, getting hit or destroyed, and the lucky ones retreat. That's all that's happening here. Before we move on, I want to show you some interesting footage we received yesterday evening. In the area of the town of Shostka in the Sumy region, a training camp for Ukrainian territorial defense soldiers was discovered. Dozens of soldiers were seen entering a building while being watched by a Russian drone. Shortly after, an Iskander missile strike hit the site, and it's not hard to guess what happened to those soldiers. Let's move on. In the Sumy region, we had a significant success yesterday. In fact, just yesterday in our report, we were talking about prospects in the Sumy region for the summer, June, July, August. And now the front has begun to shift. We managed to advance in 2 areas. The first is near the village of Lochnia. Our forces advanced 1.5 kilometers into the village and reached its southern outskirts. Thus, Lochnia came under our full control, because beyond that point, the road leads straight to Yunakovka. I doubt we'll attempt to enter Yunakovka today. I think the immediate task is to fully clear Lochnia, establish a firm presence there, and build up reserves. Only after that, and possibly after advancing on the flanks, will we attempt an assault on Yunakovka. Moreover, I believe the Ukrainian forces will attempt a counterattack, as their military leadership has received clear orders from Kiev not to allow us to take Yunakovka. And it's clear why. From Yunakovka, it's just 19 kilometers to Sumy. Given that our FPV drones can now easily reach targets 30 kilometers away and destroy equipment, like we've seen on the Kramatorsk-Dobropilya highway, then taking up positions on the southern edge of Yunakovka would be a disaster for Sumy. Yesterday, it was also reported that Russian FPV drones have reached Kharkiv, which is clearly a major success for Russian industry. Back to Sumy region, let's note this down. As of now, our positions are only 700 meters away from the first streets on the northern edge of Yunakovka. The total depth of our advance into the Sumy region currently stands at 11 kilometers. That's quite a significant distance, and as I mentioned, there was another sector in Sumy where we advanced yesterday. That's here, southwest of Basovka. We advanced by 1 kilometer across a 3-kilometer wide front, reached the highway and took control of that area. The next goal is to straighten the front here and then push further south to create at least a buffer zone around the border regions. In general, the front here has its own momentum. We're slowly moving forward. For example, the day before yesterday, the Ukrainian Sumy administration announced the evacuation of 200 settlements. They understand they simply can't hold back Russian forces. In terms of numbers, yesterday's Russian advance in the Sumy region across these sectors totaled 5.5 square kilometers. And let me remind you, for those who don't know, Russian forces here aren't even using armored vehicles. They're advancing using only infantry on motorcycles and ATVs. So under such conditions, gaining 5.5 square kilometers per day is a very solid result. Moving on. In the Kharkiv region, as always, it's quiet. The front is holding, there are no advances. However, the Siversk direction has become active. Yesterday, advances were recorded in 2 sectors. One of them was extremely important. We managed to take control of Verkhnekamenskoye. That means that yesterday alone we advanced by almost 2 kilometers. And importantly, this wasn't across fields or forest belts. This was an advance through residential areas. In one powerful push, the Ukrainian garrison was driven out of the village, and we reached its western outskirts. Objective control data confirms this. As a result, Verkhnekamenskoye came under our full and uncontested control. And now this is important. From our current positions, it's only 4.5 kilometers to Siversk. And as you can see on the map, it's a straight road. Of course, that doesn't mean we'll try to enter the city tomorrow. No, not at all. Siversk is a tough nut to crack, and it can't be taken in one go. That was shown back in the spring of 2022 when we already tried to enter the city, and we did get in, but it all ended in failure. You could even say we were routed there. Still, this significant improvement in our position is a good development and will definitely play a role in the future. As for the second area of progress, it's more modest, much more modest. It was just a local improvement of our position, a 380-meter advance across a 550-meter wide front. Let's move on. Yesterday, there was also progress reported in the area around Chasiv Yar. Take a look. Our forces managed to advance 1 kilometer beyond the Siversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal. The width of the advance zone is just over 1 kilometer. What can I say here? Well, it's definitely time not only to push further into Chasiv Yar itself, but also to start moving along the flanks. And this advance is precisely in line with that goal. At a minimum, the aim is to straighten the front like this and then move toward Mayskiy. As for Chasiv Yar itself, there are no changes. The Ukrainian armed forces still control the southern district, while the rest of the city is under the control of Russian forces. Moreover, even the central areas with multi-story residential buildings are under the control of the Russian armed forces. Now we move on to the Kleban-Beek direction, where once again there is significant progress by Russian troops. As we reported yesterday, the pocket south of the settlements of Zarya and Romanka is being successfully cleared by Russian forces. Apparently, Ukrainian units decided to quickly withdraw their troops from there to avoid being encircled and completely destroyed. I think today or tomorrow we'll receive objective control footage from that area. There is also Russian progress toward the settlement of Yablonevka. A few more forest belts have come under Russian control. Slightly to the west, there's also Russian advancement toward Popov Yar. From the South Donetsk direction, we received objective control footage of Russian forces advancing toward the settlement of Komar and toward Otradnoye. Now a few words about politics. All the globalist media are stunned by the narrative that Trump has abandoned Ukraine. Trump is playing on Putin's side. That's what they write. This is their not-so-subtle way of launching an information war against Trump, aiming to force him to turn around and back off his stance of exiting the conflict if there's no progress in resolving the Ukraine crisis. They pulled a similar trick during his first term. Now they're trying again, according to the Telegram channel Legitimny. At the same time, Trump recently stated that if there's no significant progress on Ukraine, the US will relinquish its role in resolving the European conflict, effectively dumping the responsibility on the globalists. As for sanctions, he left things vague, saying he still hopes for negotiation progress. This message was designed to counteract the negativity currently being spread by the globalist media. It's very important for the globalists to corner Trump and force him back into the Ukrainian crisis, turning him into a so-called Biden 2.0. It was essential for the globalists to prevent Trump from bringing Ukraine and Russia to the negotiating table, because that would have given him a window of opportunity to exit the conflict. We've written about this many times. They failed to stop that. Zelensky is clearly playing on the side of the globalists. Their task is to box Trump in, even as he continues to hold his ground, stating clearly that, "This is not my war." He said this back on April 14th, and we outlined the scenario of his game, say Russian Telegram channels. Our forecast from December is playing out exactly as expected. It's no coincidence that Biden flooded Kiev with weapons before leaving office. The globalists were preparing for a prolonged confrontation, but Trump sees through it. That's why he is gradually preparing to withdraw from the game, knowing the globalists won't allow his peace initiatives to succeed. Remember, for Trump, China is more important than the Ukrainian crisis, which has lost both its urgency and financial appeal. The globalists are keeping it alive solely to drag Trump into the game and to cover up all the flaws in the EU economy. Yesterday, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio openly said that the US is simply wasting time over the Ukraine crisis. For Russia, it's also important for the US to pull out of the conflict and leave Ukraine alone with Europe, one-on-one against Russia. And that's all for now, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and stay tuned.